So we're going to go ahead and be talking about some nonprofits today. I have a series of videos, not too many of them for today, but I do want to share just what a nonprofit is, and then we're going to go straight over to those other videos. Okay, so let's first look at this. I just typed into Google and then I had an AI overview. Okay, and it says generally, because I asked like, what is a nonprofit, and are they tax exempt? It says generally, and I put it up probably over here. Generally, nonprofit organizations with tax exempt status in the U.S., particularly those under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, IRC, are exempt from federal income tax. However, there are nuances and exceptions. Unrelated business income tax, UBIT, nonprofits may have to pay federal income tax on income from activities that are considered an unrelated trade or business, meaning that they are regularly carried on or are not substantially related to the organization's tax exempt purpose. Also, employment taxes, nonprofit, like many other employers, are generally required to withhold and pay federal income tax, Social Security, Medicare taxes, etc. And state and local taxes. The tax obligation of nonprofits at the state and local levels can vary significantly depending on the specific state and municipality where the organization operates. And then there were some other ones. These are the big ones that I did want to talk about because I feel like they scamming. Okay, because I mean, you go and look at a lot of other businesses. Okay, Goodwill, Salvation Army, mostly Goodwill. We're gonna talk about the other stuff. Goodwill, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Okay, because it used to be, and I understand why, but it used to be for people who just didn't have enough money and they had to get secondhand items, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you can't afford it and this is the place to go, I get it. Okay. But the thing about it is Goodwill is charging almost as much as brand new. So I guess I'm a little confused. If I can't afford an item, whatever it may be, a vase that is a brand new, why are you charging me almost brand new prices? Okay, so that's something that to me just really doesn't make much sense at all. Okay, so that's one of the main things about that. You have clothes there that a shirt could be $2, $3. I guess I never, and this is not, I'm just saying, we never had secondhand unless it was from like your sister or your cousin or something like that. But I mean, like going to a store and having some random person secondhand, we personally never had that. So I never went up in there like that. I mean, I never went in there when I was younger. We just never did. But when you go and look at it now, this is what I'm like, oh, this stuff is not cheap. This is expensive. And people say, well, no, shirts used to be, you get a nice, let's say it was a Nike shirt, $5. That Nike shirt is now $15 when it was originally $20. It's like, wait, hold up. This is not affordable. Who can afford this? I mean, when you have a family, let's say you got a family, 5 kids, for example, you can't afford that. You just can't, So to me, I'm like, what are we doing? Aren't we supposed to be helping people out? Then you got the nonprofit hospitals that are over here messing people up too. It's a whole hot butterball mess. Okay. But let's go ahead and get straight into these videos.
The United States has over 1.5 million nonprofit organizations.
Wow.
And they gross $2.6 trillion a year.
With a T?
$2.6 trillion a year.
That's not even the GDP of most countries on earth.
Absolutely. But when you look at the quote unquote efforts or those that's entrusted with this affair and rectifying this affair, and you see the fallacy and the gross negligence that comes with United States, they have one of the largest percentages of homelessness, mass incarceration, food insecurity, and the list goes on. So now when you dive into the statistics behind it, it's like, wow.
How's that possible?
This is a real problem.
Somebody,
United States,
for the love of God, please help me understand why all of these non-profit hospitals that don't have to pay any taxes, that are required to write off hospital debts for low-income families. Why are these nonprofit hospitals the largest debt collectors in the United States? These nonprofit hospitals are sitting here garnishing wages of low-income families for old debts half of them should not even owe. And then on top of that, garnishments are not counted for public assistance, for food assistance, for anything. That's not taken into consideration. How is this allowed? And why is nobody speaking up on it? These nonprofit hospitals are the biggest thieves in the United States. Look at those CEOs' income. Look at their yearly income. Look how much they're writing off. Okay? But they're not. They're not. Because you should also look at how many people that they are suing weekly. Okay? Also, not even how many new cases that they are suing weekly, but how many existing cases are being sued weekly, are being garnished, and this income is not taken into consideration. These families cannot feed their kids. They can't get assistance with food. They can't get assistance with childcare. Meanwhile, they're not bringing home nearly close to what y'all are counting. Like, how are mothers and families supposed to live like this?
A searing audit has found that the city of LA has failed to properly track billions of dollars in homeless spending. No, this is wrong, because it's actually so much worse. And as usual, I got all the receipts. Let me show you. So, the majority of funding from LAHSA, LAHSA, the LA Homeless Services Authority, goes to something called bridge housing, okay? $320 million. Now, bridge housing is basically temporary housing that they've built to house people. Here's one that they've built in Venice Beach. Now let's check out the details. It cost them $8.6 billion to build this particular complex in Venice Beach. And most of that money, $5.6 million, came directly from the city. There are 154 beds in total, costing them $56,000 per bed. And this is what it looks like inside. Kind of looks like an office, except beds instead of desks. $56,000 to build one of these cubicles. Now, I'm not a construction expert, but this seems kind of sus. And on top of that, it's costing the city $3.4 million a year to operate this bridge housing, which is another $22,000 per bed. But where it gets even sketchier is who the city has contracted to operate this bridge housing. In this case, we have two nonprofits, PATH and SPY. Now, PATH, I've done a dive on them before, but they are the nonprofit that has collected tens of millions of dollars from the city to keep buildings vacant, buildings that were supposed to be used for shelter. Their CEO, Jennifer Hart Dietz, makes nearly $400,000 a year, probably even more now. And here she is, ending homelessness with Gavin Newsom. Now, the other operator, SPY, which stands for Safe Place for Youth, is a nonprofit that focuses on youth homelessness, is run by this lady named Erica Hartman. Now, Erica Hartman, as it turns out, is a former board member for the LA Homeless Services Authority, and in fact, an active board member when this contract was given out. Now, that seems like a conflict of interest. So just like we have a revolving door in the military-industrial complex, in the pharmaceutical-industrial complex, we also have a revolving door in the homelessness industrial complex. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we end up with insane figures like $837,000 to house a single homeless person in LA. And if we multiply 837,000 by the number of homeless people, which is 75,000, we get $62 billion. So obviously the math ain't mathin'. Let's also not forget to mention that LAHSA and its CEO, Valencia Adams Kellum, is currently being sued for obfuscating information from the public. Like, I'm not saying everything is fraudulent, but it seems like these folks are up to something. Oh, and by the way, LAHSA has recently taken down their entire leadership page. Definitely what accountable organizations do.
Sometimes non-profits are just fucking scam, because let's look at the YMCA. I'm not calling the YMCA a scam. First off, they're nonprofit, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't pay taxes. They get a lot of their shit donated to them. They are backed by a multi-billion-dollar grant that was set up by a local billionaire in our area. But now they're building these monstrous facilities, right? $50 million YMCAs that have indoor, outdoor water parks, and they're still charging dues. They're still charging for all their amenities, but they're getting the land donated to them. They're getting millions of dollars donated to them to be able to build these facilities. They're not paying any taxes, and then they're still charging fees on top of this. Like, how does somebody like me that's a small business compete against that? I pay my taxes. I'm not getting anything donated to me. I've got to pay fair wages, all of that stuff, but yet these guys are able to do this kind of shit. I think it's just wrong.
What if I told you nonprofit hospitals are simply 3 for-profit hospitals in a trench coat? Oh, hello, I am back to talk to you more about nonprofit hospital system sins. The Loan Institute just put out a press release detailing how nonprofit hospitals in the US receive billions more in tax breaks than what they offer to invest in their communities. What that means. Nonprofit hospitals don't have to pay most federal, state, or local taxes under the principle of them providing charity care services to underserved patients in their communities. They could and should use funds to support public health measures like introducing harm reduction programs, substance use treatment, help with access to food and affordable housing. All right, I'm going to play the Jeopardy music here. Do we think most nonprofit hospitals are supporting their communities in a meaningful way and using all funds appropriately? Question mark. Well, of the 1,700 plus nonprofit systems that were included in this report, more than 1,300 have fair share deficits. The value of what they are investing into the community does not equal the value of what they are receiving in terms of tax benefits. Well, millions in fair share deficits could potentially wipe out medical debt for over 18 million Americans or prevent every at-risk rural hospital, there's 600 of them, from closing. The combined amount of these fair share deficits of these nonprofit hospitals totaled over $14 billion in 2020. That's $14 billion that could have been spent addressing community needs and relieving medical debt. This is all public information, by the way. According to the Loan Institute, UPMC Presbyterian had the largest fair share deficit of any single hospital in 2020, $246 million. This is a list of the hospitals with the largest fair share deficits in the country. There's just not enough oversight into these practices that allow these hospitals to deny their communities what they deserve. Shame, shame, shame.
But again, it's been made very clear that this $250 million estimate for the scandal is just what Feeding Our Future took out of the programs. If you add together what these other two networks, Partners in Nutrition and Youth Leadership Academy, took out of the food programs, you get above $500 million. In fact, if you just look at calendar year 2021, the entire program, which includes schools and daycares and all kinds of other YMCAs and all kinds of other people, hundreds of providers, those 3 nonprofits took out something more than 2/3, almost 70% of every dollar in the program. So for this 1 year, almost the whole thing was a scam.